Hello everyone, my name is Ali and welcome to my very first episode of Wellness with Ali. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about topical steroid withdrawal and my journey with it so far. So grab a cup of your favorite tea, get as comfy as you can, and let's dive right in. Topical steroids are medications that are prescribed by doctors to treat skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. They're applied directly to the skin to relieve symptoms like itching, swelling, and inflammation. But unfortunately, the prolonged use of topical steroids can cause problems such as thinning of the skin and blood vessel constriction. It can also lead to a full dependency on the cream, which means that if this happens to you and you stop using them, it's possible that you can go through an extremely debilitating withdrawal, hence the name topical steroid withdrawal. There's a lack of regulatory control over the prescription and distribution of topical steroids, which often means that there's no monitoring of steroid usage histories, and people end up having unfettered access to them and end up overusing them. TSW can also be known as topical steroid addiction and red sleeve syndrome or red skin syndrome. Unfortunately, one of the toughest parts about TSW is that it's not currently recognised or accepted by a majority of the medical community. There's a lack of awareness and understanding surrounding TSW, and many health professionals don't even recognise it as a medical condition. There's a desperate need for more studies and research to understand the mechanisms, the symptoms, and the treatment options. Thankfully, there are organisations who advocate for TSW, such as the National Eczema Association and the International Topical Steroid Awareness Network. TSW awareness has mainly been raised by the TSW community, where thousands of people have been sharing their stories from all around the world. Whilst YouTube is not a substitute for medical advice, I found it to be an extremely valuable resource for me in discovering TSW and connecting with others who understood what I was going through. I'm so grateful for our TSW community, and I hope to contribute to raising awareness about this condition by sharing my story, and I hope to shed some more light on TSW and support those affected by it. I've suffered from eczema ever since I was a baby, and doctors have always prescribed topical steroids to me to treat it. I had the occasional flare-ups through childhood and into my teenage years, but it wasn't until my mid-20s where my flares started getting worse and I was prescribed more steroids than I'd ever been before. I was constantly at the doctors and referred to dermatologists, and I was so desperate to find answers as to what was going on with my skin, but I ended up always leaving with more and more prescriptions for topical steroids. I was told to mix them in with my moisturizers and apply them regularly, and I just knew that this was band-aiding the problem, and I really just wanted to get to the root cause. I tried so many alternative therapies such as naturopathy, acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, red light therapy, cryotherapy, all sorts of diets, detoxes, cleansers, supplements, but nothing ever seemed to work. I'd actually even stopped using topical steroids during the detoxes and cleansers, but it was so unbearable without them. At this point, I didn't even know about TSW, so I always ended up back at the doctors to get my fix, because let's be honest, it works like magic. It's instant relief, but of course it's only ever temporary. And little did I know that my skin had become fully dependent on them. And my flares just started getting stronger and more aggressive. And it just began spreading to places all over my body, like places I didn't even have eczema in the first place. It didn't even look like typical eczema. It was changing in appearance. And yeah, I just knew something was seriously wrong. And I was so scared that I was going to have to rely on steroids for the rest of my life, and just feeling like my body was broken. And yeah, I began researching the heck out of different types of skin conditions and desperately searching for something that I could possibly relate to. And that's when I came across a video on topical steroid addiction and topical steroid withdrawal. And as soon as I learned about this condition, I knew that was my answer. Every single symptom I could 100% relate to, and I was that certain that I didn't even look into it much further. I just knew I had to stop applying them. And that's when my withdrawal began. And I was totally unprepared for what I was about to endure. It was extreme, like the worst thing I've ever experienced. I actually don't know if it would have been better to be more prepared for what I was about to go through, or if it was better that I didn't know. I had extreme itching, like it's described as bone deep because it's that deep you cannot even get to the surface of it, or you can't even scratch it with the surface. Extreme burning, swelling, like my hands, my legs, my ankles swelled up. There were days that I could hardly even walk. I had extreme flaking. Like I've never seen so much skin fall off a person in my life, like to the point I was scooping it up in clumps. It was gross. I had hot flushes, and then at other times I was freezing cold and shivering, and insomnia and hair loss, and don't even get me started on the smell of TSW skin from the ooze and the fluids, like the weep from the skin, like, ugh. My whole body ended up being affected by TSW, and it was 100% worse than any eczema flare. The withdrawal is so intense that it drives you crazy. I ended up with severe depression and anxiety because my whole life was just put on hold, and I was just sitting there watching the world go by, not knowing when this thing was going to end. I get so envious of people who could just shower without pain and itch and wear normal clothing and just go about their daily lives without any discomfort, and people who'd be swimming in the ocean without unbearable pain. Like, how? Yeah, and people who could even just wash their dishes and get their hands wet. And when it rained, they didn't get completely panicked when they were rained on because that itch was so unbearable. I was just so desperate to feel like a normal human being again. It was torture and just felt like an indefinite life sentence. There were a few things that I found comfort from, like the warmth of the morning sun. A hot pack on my stomach would help just to distract me from the itch on the rest of my body. I'd use my hairdryer and hot showers to literally burn out the itch from my skin. And I know this is not good either, and it probably ended up doing more damage, but I just had to do whatever I needed to do to get through it and just give myself just some temporary relief, because you can never escape the skin. I actually ended up finding a doctor in my hometown who recognized TSW, and after examining my skin and reviewing my history, he concluded that I was experiencing TSW, which was great to have that validation, but unfortunately, he wanted to prescribe me with Elidel, which is another cream without steroids, but also has similar symptoms to similar withdrawal symptoms to TSW. So I just decided to go my own way and relied on the TSW community for my support and my motivation to keep going. Unfortunately, the only way out of TSW is to go through TSW, and I mean, the body can heal with time, and it also depends a lot on your environment in terms of managing allergens and irritants. But luckily, there's also an incredible treatment option which helps to speed up the healing process and for the skin cells to proliferate faster than they would normally with time. It's called cold atmospheric plasma therapy, and I'm currently receiving this treatment in Thailand, and I'll talk about this in the next episode. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out. And in the meantime, you can head on over to my Instagram page and follow me there for more regular updates. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I'll see you next time.